We are officially 2 weeks out from the 2025 NFL Draft, so Jake and I are going to break down everything we're hearing and prospects that have been tied to the Indianapolis Colts this draft season. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you all for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first purchase. Hello, everyone. My name is Zach Hicks, your resident film nerd and draft nerd over at horseshoehuddle.com. And I'm joined, as always, by Jake Arthur, our boots on the ground for the site. And of course, his boots are on the ground right now. Jake is at the Omni Severin Hotel in downtown Indy doing this show. So if you guys are watching on YouTube, that's with the beautiful lighting and the ambiance behind Jake. That's what he's doing today. So really fun get together with Omni Severin. We appreciate them letting you in there to record today. We'll have more on that later in the show. But today, guys, we're going to talk about players that the Colts have been interested in throughout this draft process. We're going to talk about some of the team's top 30 visits. We're going to talk about guys we've heard connected to the Colts on day 1 of the draft, day 2 of the draft, and day 3 of the draft. Just kind of going through a combination of what's been publicly out there for you guys to consume, and also stuff that we've heard just from talking with other people and just seeing the connections and the visits that the Colts have had from pro days and such like that. But we're going to kick it off with the top 30 visits. We do have, 13 of them are public, I think? Or what's this, Jake? 36, 14. I was close. 14 of them are public and out there for you guys to see. We're going to go through a couple of them right now. Let's start with the 2 quarterbacks, though, Jake. We put one of them in the thumbnail to just drag all of you guys in here. Quinn Ewers from Texas and Tyler Shuck from Louisville. I believe both of them were at the Senior Bowl this offseason.
Not Ewers.
Oh, Ewers wasn't. Okay, I think Ewers was invited, but he pulled out then. But Shuck was at the Senior Bowl. 2 quarterbacks that are like fringe day 2, maybe day 3 quarterbacks. Very interesting the Colts are using top 30 visits on them. And to me, I do think the Colts are taking a quarterback in this draft. I think day 2 might be a bit rich for me, but
yeah.
Tyler Shuck, Quinn Ewers, do we buy that they are interested in them, Jake, or do you think they're just doing their due diligence here?
So I do definitely think they want to come out of this draft with a third quarterback. I think by the time they'd have to get Shuck, that's probably a bit too early, so I don't think they're willing to do that. I think it's maybe in preparation for a slide. But when you look at like Ewers, I think there's legitimate smoke there. And I don't love to reference Senior Bowl meetings or combine meetings or whatever, because they get 60 formal meetings and then unlimited informal meetings at the combine. So like they can meet with everybody. But they had a formal meeting with Quinn Ewers and an official 30 visit with him. So like there's something there because with the normal player, they could just go and spend that amount, that allotted amount of time and figure it out. But they really seem to be doing their due diligence and like talking to him rigorously and finding out a lot. And that doesn't even count the contact they have in between all that stuff throughout the pre-draft process. So Shuck, I don't know, like that might just be kicking the tires, but I think Quinn Ewers, I think they legitimately have some level of interest in him.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I do think there is some interest in Ewers. Now, again, I don't know if they take a quarterback before day 3. For me, that would be a bit of malpractice with how much they're investing. But again, quarterback is one of those positions where you just got to keep throwing resources at it until you get it right. So none of us are going to complain if, they take Quinn Ewers in round 3 and he turns out to be a pretty good player for them that can maybe be their starter. I'm not saying that's likely. It's just at quarterback, you got to keep throwing resources at this thing if you don't feel good about what you have. And the Colts clearly don't feel great about their quarterback room.
Right.
So I can't say with full certainty they're not going to take a quarterback prior to day 3. I'm just saying I hope they don't, and they keep investing in the rest of the roster to give Richardson and Jones this chance to win this year. But we will see. I'm fully buying the Quinn Ewers, like that they like him. I don't know about Tyler Shuck. And I think if either of those guys are on day 3, though, I think they would take him. I just don't know if they're going to be there on day 3. Going away from quarterback, though, or do you have a last thing you wanted to say on quarterback there,
Well,
Jake?
I was going to say, I think a lot of people are like, well, that's not who the quarterback competition is between. Why are they looking at quarterbacks? So number one, they did lose Ellinger. I think they won a QB3, but like you said, they're also not sold on Richardson versus Jones. If you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't necessarily have any quarterbacks. So if it doesn't work out with Anthony and Daniel Jones, and next year you find yourself searching again, well, you already have a quarterback that you drafted this year that you spent a year developing who maybe can be in the conversation. So
yeah,
I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, and also there is good reason to have a backup quarterback drafted on day 3 because you can get that cheap contract as your backup quarterback. Now, the Colts actually have to have that guy as their main backup to reap the benefits of the cheap contract. What they've done the past couple of years is just sign an expensive veteran instead when they had Sam Ellinger. But in theory, I could see it making some sense. But we spent a little too much time on quarterback there. Let's get to some of the other bigger names they've had in for top 30 visits. Defensive end Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M. Defensive end James Pierce from Tennessee, cornerback Siobhan Revel from ECU, and defensive tackle Alfred Collins from Texas. Any of those names really pop out to you, Jake?
Yeah, so the term top 30 and like official 30 visits and everything, people do sometimes tend to think it means like this is among their top 30 players, and that's just not necessarily it. It's more so getting medicals and figuring out who some of these guys are as people and workers, really. And I think there's plenty of reason to have big questions about guys like Stewart and Pierce, because as talents, they would be worth the 14th overall pick. But when you look at like Stewart, is there anything you're wondering about with him, like in your locker room or like work? Is there anything they feel they need to find out? And part of it is, how does a guy with that blend of size and athleticism only amass like 4.5 sacks in an entire college career?
Right.
Like, what's that all about? And then I know Texas A&M's scheme plays into part of that, but that's what you're trying to figure out. And then James Pierce, there's just some very vague character concerns. So you see teams bring in these character concern guys a lot to figure out what are those concerns. Is there validity to them? And is that something we can work with? Would that even be a problem for us? So again, both of those guys, super incredible first round talents, but the Colts need to find out if the juice is worth the squeeze there.
Yeah, and just to add on that, when I look at top 30 visits, I don't really look at the big names that teams have in for top 30s. And I mean, quarterbacks, obviously, that there's something there with quarterbacks. But when it comes to all these other guys, like you said, it's usually just rechecks. Like with Stewart, with Pierce, I think it's more about getting a second interview on those guys. With Revel's already in town for medical rechecks, so the Colts kind of just were like, hey, pop on by. I'm not too sure what's going on with Alfred Collins. I think they probably just like him, in this class.
It's Texas.
Yeah, they like their Texas players. So I don't really look at it too much when it comes to the top players when you talk about top 30 visits. But what I really like to look at is those fringe draftable players that teams have in for top 30 visits. Then my eyes, perk up, my ears perk up, whatever the saying is there. I really look at it and I'm like, okay, that might be a guy they target in the undrafted range, in the late day 3 range. And they have a couple guys right here that I think go in that range here. So offensive lineman Jackson Slater, Sacramento State, offensive lineman Dalton Cooper from Oklahoma State, offensive lineman Bryce Cabeldue from Kansas, offensive lineman Miles Hinton from Michigan, cornerback BJ Mays from Texas A&M, wide receiver Quentin Skinner from Kansas, edge Elijah Ponder from Cal Poly, and tight end Caleb Lohner from Utah. So I know a good chunk of these names here, and I will say that the guys I'm really buying, Elijah Ponder, Bryce Cabeldue, Dalton Cooper, Jackson Slater, freak athletes. All of those guys, absolute freak athletes. And I know for a fact the Colts are very high on Ponder and Cooper and Slater. So I do think there is some credence when it comes to the top 30s for these like fringe draftable guys, because they just want to like get as much info on them to be sure about spending those late picks on them.
Yeah, for sure. And I had Cabeldue and Ponder in my most recent 7-round mock. So I think there's really something there. Cabeldue especially fits the versatile lineman they're really searching for. Ponder, small school, super freak, edge rusher. That fits into everything they try to do pretty much every draft. But no, those are some really interesting guys. BJ Mays is another interesting one. He kind of fits the Jalen Jones type of situation, the late round, big athletic corner, but he had 4 interceptions last year in the SEC. So that's interesting. Kind of a late bloomer. He didn't get a ton of production till late in his career, bounced around a couple places. So I think he definitely, there's a lot to ask in a top 30 visit from a guy like that. But he's very interesting on day 3 for sure.
Yeah. So a lot of really good names there. I do think if we can tell anything from this, that the Colts are interested in some day 3 offensive linemen. I think that's a very clear thing there. But we'll see if we can get any more of these top 30s the rest of the way. That's all the top 30s that we know of for now. Again, there's 30 of them, so that's only 14. We'll see if we can get any more of the other 16 names the rest of the process here. But coming up, we're going to talk about some other players that we've heard connected to the Colts on day 1 and day 2, or potentially day 1 and day 2 of this upcoming draft. A lot of familiar faces coming up in that section, but you're going to want to stay tuned and hear what we have to say about them.
There is nothing like the energy of a live game, whether it's catching a last-minute MLB showdown or soaking in the excitement of an NBA matchup. But finding great seats at a great price, that used to be a challenge until I found Gametime. Gametime makes scoring last-minute tickets easier than ever. Prices actually decrease as the event gets closer to time, and with their all-in pricing, you can see the total cost up front, and there's no big surprises at the end where here's 400 magical new dollars that just showed up on the price tag. Here's other reasons why I love Gametime. So first off, they got those last minute deals. You can save up to 60% off of buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever. I have used a lot of different events, getting Gametime tickets for those, and it's been legit every time. With your views from the seat before you buy, there's no surprise fees. And they've got their lowest price guarantee so that you can book with total confidence. Their lowest price guarantee also means that I never worry about overpaying. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Zach. So there are some early round guys who have not had top 30 visits, so to speak, but there's definite interest there. You may have heard of a guy named Tyler Warren, who's supposed to be having a workout for the Colts and a few other teams. He's kind of a guy he's one of those guys who's kind of knows there's only a handful of teams that he could go to. So he's going to hold a little showcase for some of those teams, I think. And then Jihad Campbell, Alabama. Obviously, there's some smoke there. Tyler Booker, someone you've been all over from the start, really. So let's talk about some of these guys with early round, day 1, day 2 interest, where sure they make sense for the Colts as players, but like there actually seems to be some interest there from the Colts.
Yeah, I will say when it comes to round 1 this year, it feels a lot weirder than last year's round 1, where it felt like we could connect a lot of guys to the Colts last year. Last year it was, they want to get up for a Neighbors or an Odunze or a Brock Bowers. But if they sit tight, they like Brian Thomas, they like Xavier Worthy, they like Quinyon Mitchell, they like Laiatu Latu, which apparently was under the radar. We didn't really get that one. They like Dallas Turner, they like Jared Verse. Like there were so many players that were kind of connected to the Colts and made sense for the Colts. This year, it's kind of all Tyler Warren, at 14. And that's a little disheartening because in one sense, like it's good that they're keeping a lot of it close to the vest, but it's a little nervous that is their like only plan or their biggest plan, because like, what if he's not there at 14? This is not a draft like last year where if Laiatu Latu wasn't there, you could have got Dallas Turner. Or if they wanted to like take a receiver no matter what, they could have got Brian Thomas. I don't think this is the type of class where you can kind of pivot to another very good prospect. It kind of falls off a little bit after Tyler Ward. Jihad Campbell's another player that we know that the Colts are, we know that the Colts are very interested. I'm not saying it's like most common knowledge out there, but I am a little nervous about the shoulder injury. Will the Colts kind of push him down the board a little bit because he won't be ready until maybe October? But, and then if he is ready by October, he would have missed all of his rookie mini camp. He would have missed all of the offseason and the first month of the season. How much production are you going to get out of that guy in year one when you really need to win games this year and have a day one contributor in that round one? So I've pivoted a lot to Tyler Booker recently as like that second option behind Warren, just because he is a proven guard prospect who's going to be just a good player from day one. But I don't know really where the Colts go if Warren's off the board. Like, I haven't heard them connected to other players in that range, like maybe a defensive tackle like Kenneth Grant or Derek Harmon, maybe an edge rusher like Donovan Ezraku. I haven't heard them connected to those names. So really all I've really heard is Tyler Warren and Jahad Campbell and a little bit of Tyler Booker. But I don't even know if they would take Booker at 14. That seems a little high for Booker even. So when it comes to round one, I'm kind of grasping to the straws a little bit. I feel a little bit better about like the day two type stuff, but the round one interest, I am trying to find another name after Tyler Warren that makes a ton of sense for this team.
Yeah, let's just say Warren is off the board there. Like, it just seems more and more likely all the time that they're going to try and move back a little bit, because you can get, even Campbell's stock seems to be tanking lately. I've seen him in a couple mocks where he's down at the bottom of the first or even top of the second. And right. So if you think you can pull that off, sure. But that's where Tyler Booker and, Colston Loveland with his own shoulder injury.
I would say Loveland falls into that same category for me, where it's like he'll be ready earlier than Campbell because he might be ready by like the start of the season. Mm-hmm. But it's another one where the guy's probably going to miss all of the offseason work, all of training camp, and like they need to win right now. Like that's why I've heard more Mason Taylor to the Colts than I've heard Loveland. And I think a lot of that is that injury. So I'm really, again, I'm grasping at straws when it comes to round one. When we talk about day two here in a second, like I feel much better there. But round one, I got to find another name besides Warren and Booker. Because I know they like Booker, but I don't know if it's round one or if it's pick number 14. It might be trade back. And who's trading up in this draft? Like it's weird. It's a weird draft. It's not very strong in round one. And I just don't know if Tyler Warren's going to be there because this draft is so weak in round one.
Yeah, so the only guy we have on this list who's like bona fide, no question, round one is Warren. When you look at Campbell, Booker, and Mason Taylor is a top 40 guy, but like everyone else is kind of day two, some high round two guys, which tells me the smart money is so much more in trading back and grabbing another couple picks. That way, let's say you fall to 20, 25 or whatever, and then you're sitting there in the second round and there's someone at 35, 36, 37, go pounce. You've got more ammo to go do that now. Right. So I think the smart money kind of lies in that. It just seems more likely all the time that if it's not Tyler Warren, it's a trade back.
But who's coming up in this draft?
That's the thing. Jason Light from the Buccaneers today was like, no one wants to trade up in this draft.
That's what I mean.
Unless someone's going for Jackson Dart or Jalen Milroe or something, you don't have much ammo to actually move back.
Yeah, I've heard from a few people that the trade comps this year are going to be a lot lower than typical drafts. But we'll put a pin in that for now. To talk about other like day two guys I've heard connect to the Colts, I'm going to run through a couple names here, Jake, and then I'll let you talk about one name that you saw at the Colts local pro day. But Mason Taylor, Carson Swettinger, we've been talking about those guys all off season. Make a ton of sense, and we've heard them connect to the Colts. Terrence Ferguson from Oregon, Shmuel Munden Jr. from Georgia. The Colts liked him a lot at the Senior Bowl. Damian Martinez, the running back from Miami, they have really liked him since the Senior Bowl as well. And a couple other names I'll throw in here is Miles Frazier, the offensive lineman from LSU. Fits a lot of what they like. Former tackle who moved to guard, played some good snaps at guard last year for LSU. Defensive tackle Joshua Farmer from Florida State could kind of fit that rotational DT role that they're looking for. And Braden Swinson from LSU, very productive pass rusher. I don't know if the Colts go edge rusher too early in this draft, but I think Swinson can make a little bit of sense as well. But Jake, you also saw a certain somebody talking with Marcus Bowe quite a bit at the Colts local pro day, right?
Yeah, so that's one of the benefit of me going around and doing some of these pre-draft things each year. The Colts local pro day was at the facility. But yeah, Marcus Bowe and Tony Sperano were cutting it up and talking for quite a while on Tuesday this week. And as we know, when Tony Sperano Jr. has his hooks in someone, the Colts are willing to cave for that. Really, whenever a Colts position coach has an affinity for a player, they tend to get them. Reggie Wayne has gotten Josh Downs and A.D. Mitchell. I think he liked Alec Pierce a lot too. I mean, Sperano last year got Gonzalez and Bortolini. I mean, he at least likes Bo enough as a person to be talking to him for an extended period of time. So if he likes him as a player and thinks he has that versatility to play inside out, whatever, which I asked Bo, what teams have been doing. He said he thinks he could play all 5 positions. So, I mean, if Tony Sperano really likes Bo, then that could be your round 3 pick right there.
Yeah, I like Bo a lot. My thing is, though, his best fit's probably at center in the NFL. I actually put him as a tackle in the Indy Draft guide just because there are no tackles in this draft, and he feels like someone who's like maybe it could work there. But his best fit's probably at center, and I don't think the Colts need a center going forward. So maybe if he can bulk up a little bit, maybe a guard or a tackle could work a little bit, but we'll see. I mean, the Colts are one of the few spots where you can be a shorter arm tackle and be a tackle here. So maybe Bo can make some sense there. But look, if Tony says it, Tony gets his guy. Like, I'm happy with whatever Tony wants there. But coming up, guys, we're going to talk about some day 3 names. So some true sicko behavior coming up that we've heard connected to the Colts. A lot of names that we actually haven't talked about on this show yet. So like at all this offseason. So get ready for some new names that you haven't heard quite yet.
All right, guys, as we mentioned, I am at the beautiful Omni Severin Hotel here in downtown Indy right now. And this is actually my first time being here. I'm from Indy, so I don't get around to the hotels a lot. But the location here is really nice. And, for sports fans, you can kind of tell there's a similar vibe with like Lucas Oil Stadium and Gainbridge Fieldhouse. They feel very traditional. They're like modern, but they have the traditional vibe. And this very much fits in with that. The Omni actually just recently completed a $24 million Art Deco renovation that included all new guest rooms in the hotel, as well as a new restaurant and coffee shop called the Eighth Notch. It's right here. And then I am in the new bar, the Bar Cardinal. Beautiful in here. Love the ambiance. Their new look pays homage to the height of the train travel era, while also ensuring guests have access to modern amenities. It's right here near Meridian. I can't think of the street names down here. But where the rail station used to be. The Omni was recently elevated to AAA's 4 Diamond status based on cleanliness, comfort, cuisine, and consistency. And speaking of cuisine, the Omni recently promoted a new executive chef from an Omni hotel over in Dallas to lead their culinary team here. They've got incredible steaks, oysters, a high-end charcuterie board, incredible cocktails that are curated here in-house, and so much more. And the Omni Severin is also the only Indy hotel that's still operating that was listed in the Green Book. The Green Book was published annually from 1936 to 1966, and it was a guide for thousands of Black travelers to help ensure that they found safe and welcoming lodging across America, which is obviously incredibly important. They're very proud to have been included as a haven for travelers. The Omni's location is hard to beat for any sporting event or anyone visiting downtown for a convention. They're just a block away from the convention center. There is a firefighter convention going on right now, and this place is full of firefighters at the moment, so it's obviously a popular place to be. They're 2 blocks from Gainbridge, a 5-minute walk from Lucas Oil, and a 10-minute walk away from Victory Field. And for anyone who might be thinking about popping the ultimate question anytime soon, the Omni was recently included on the 12 of the best places to propose in Indianapolis list compiled by The Knot. All right, we're talking about marriages there. We're talking about marriages here. The Colts are about to get married to some guys on day 3. Quarterback, that might be the sweet spot, Zach. We talked about a couple day 2 quarterbacks, but one that I think feels quite likely both in fit and what I've seen with my own eyes. Notre Dame's Riley Leonard. I was at Notre Dame's Pro Day, and the only guy who I saw Riley Leonard off chatting with behind the scenes was Shane Steichen. They love their mobile quarterbacks, and Notre Dame literally ran Riley Leonard until he threw up in the national championship game. And, questionable passing. That's another key component to being in the quarterback room, and that is the biggest question that Riley Leonard has. So that's a match made in heaven.
Yeah, Riley Leonard, he's like if you put Anthony Richardson's accuracy and willingness to run into Daniel Jones's body, and there you go.
All right, let's go.
I mean that lovingly, Riley. But yeah, no, Riley Leonard does make some sense for the Colts on day 3. Was in local area this last year, like obviously at Notre Dame this past year. And also just has, again, the running background. He kind of is very similar to Sam Ehlinger in a way, where
Mhm.
adequate arm plus a good runner could probably win you some preseason games, and you'll never want to see him in an actual game. I think that's kind of like Riley Leonard. So Riley Leonard makes some sense for the Colts. I've heard they also like Max Brosmer a little bit from Minnesota as a day 3 guy, really smart player
Mhm.
who is pretty productive there. I haven't heard too many other connected names there on day 3. Maybe Cam Miller from North Dakota State, just
Hopefully for my
for
sake.
well, just for the athleticism too.
Yeah.
Again, if we're gonna put Riley Leonard connected to the Colts on day 3 for the athleticism, then I think Miller makes some sense as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, quarterback on day 3 makes more sense than quarterback on day 2. But we have a long list of day 3 guys we got to get to, so we
We
don't want to
do.
be too tied up on quarterback. I will say the couple names that I've heard most. I don't want to say conclusively because there's still so many things that could happen here, but the names I've heard the most connected to the Colts on day 3, personally, Za Frazier from UTSA, corner. He fits so much of what the Colts and Lou Anarumo and Chris Ballard like. Big, long, physical corner, former wide receiver that can run a 4.3.
Mhm.
Not the most productive in college, not the best player in college, but
Combine guy.
the traits are awesome. And if you're going to get that in like round 4, round 5, I think guys like Anarumo and Ballard are going to go crazy for that. Dan Jackson from Georgia, the safety to potential linebacker convert. I don't know how that's going to work. He's 194 pounds, but apparently some people think he could play linebacker in the NFL. Maybe as like a big dime
He can
backer or
play
something in there.
special teamer.
Yes. My real thought is that's your Trevor Denbo replacement. The Colts
Mhm.
apparently love the former walk-on that earned a scholarship at Georgia. And then also linebacker Aaron Smith from South Carolina State. Look, the Colts are great at drafting linebackers from South Carolina State. Smith, maybe not as productive as the past one that I'm alluding to, but a really good player at South Carolina State this past year, flies to the ball, can be a good special teamer or practice squad guy. Those are the names I've really heard. Oh, and also Seth Coleman from Illinois, the edge rusher who's
Mhm.
at the Colts local pro day. Some nutty traits with the long arms and the explosiveness. A guy who really caught my eye in the pro day circuit. I think those guys can make a lot of sense for the Colts on day 3, or again in that undrafted free agent range. When we talk day 3 guys, it's essentially early undrafted free agency. So any of these
Yeah.
guys could go anywhere as early as round 5 to being a low guarantee guy in undrafted free agency. It really just depends on how much these individual teams value these players and get desperate on the open market for them.
For sure. Another group of guys I will throw all together is Oregon. I think the Colts were relatively well represented at Oregon's pro day because I know, let's see, Terrence Ferguson is a guy who through the pro day they met with Jordan James, the running back, Johnny Cornelius, the offensive lineman. So the Colts got their money's worth going all the way out to Eugene for that pro day. Let's see, Mitchell Evans from the Notre Dame pro day as well. Shane was keeping a close eye on him. Trey Wettig, the offensive tackle from Indiana, after all the other players had left the field and were off getting their stuff and everything. Chris Ballard was talking to Wettig for a very long time at midfield for afterwards. They were still there talking after I had left, so I don't even know how long they were talking. Offensive lineman Bless Harris, who is another multi-position guy. The Colts have met with him multiple times throughout the pre-draft process, so there seems to be something there. Jack Kaiser, another Notre Dame pro day participant there. This one, I think, has core special teamer written all over it because Brian Mason was talking to him quite a bit at the pro day, as well as Mike Lacey, the Midwest area scout. So it was no coincidence that the special teams coach was talking quite a bit with Kaiser. And again, Kaiser is a guy, his entire football career has been here in Indiana. Won state titles at Pioneer, wherever it was, and then went to Notre Dame. So it's only natural that he stays here in Indy. Probably around 6'7" guy, maybe. Maybe they feel a little rich in round 5, but I mean, that's a guy who it makes too much sense to keep him here. And then let's see, there's just some ones who I've heard this interest. Corey Black, corner from Oklahoma State, Jordan Riley, safety from K-State, Colorado edge, BJ Green. That's, they're still kicking those athletic, versatile offensive linemen. So you've got Caleb Etienne from BYU and Gerard Christian Lechtenhand from Oregon State. are enormous human beings. They're both like 6'7", 6'8" plus. Josh Carlin is another guy who could play any of the three spots on the interior out of UCLA. So they are going to draft at least one or two offensive linemen on day 3. I'm almost certain of it. They have done so much work on this offensive line class this year that I would be shocked if they didn't come away with a couple of them.
Yeah, one more name I want to throw in here. I didn't put him in our outline, but I just thought of him a second ago because Lou Anarumo was at the UCLA Pro Day. And while a certain linebacker that we all know and love, Carson Schwessinger, was not working out at that Pro Day, another linebacker, Kane Madrano, was. And Kane Madrano has one of the coolest backstories in terms of like what he did in high school. In high school, he was a shot put and a discus champion, as well as a state champion in football and basketball. Goes to UCLA. It takes him a while to get onto the field on defense, but when he does, he's a very productive player the last 2 years. Kind of a tweener type guy, very, very fast, very athletic, one of the most athletic players in this entire draft. And I'm just thinking, like, he's such a Colts, like round 4, round 5, rounds. Whenever you see like a really skinny linebacker that can run a little bit, that's a Chris Ballard day 3 linebacker. I think Dane Brugler even had Madrano as like his 10th rated off-ball linebacker in this class, which I thought that was a bit much for me, but I am a Madrano fan. He was in my 30 days of Colts fits type articles wherever this offseason. So I just know, look, Lou Anarumo was at that pro day. He was watching the workouts. How do you not come away impressed when Madrano's running like a 6'8" 3 cone and running like a 4'4"? like how are you not impressed seeing that guy run around out there? So I think he can make a ton of sense on day 3, but I really am looking at these linebackers and offensive linemen on day 3, Jake. I think that's a sweet spot for, like, they might take an offensive lineman earlier than day 3, but I do think in the undrafted free agent market or like the late day 3, like we're going to see a bunch of offensive linemen to the Colts.
Yeah. And one thing you just mentioned kind of jogged my mind a little bit as well. I mean, anytime a coordinator is at a pro day, you have to take notice. So with Lou being at UCLA's pro day, that obviously opens up things for Oluwafemi Oladejo, the edge rusher as well. So UCLA, not a great team, but some studs on defense. You know, Madrano, Schwessinger, Oladejo, like they got some dudes on there. Their team was just not good whatsoever. But another couple names that hit the kind of cutting room floor, Jarquez Hunter, I believe Auburn, the running back there, Tyler Batty and Xavier Carlton, a couple edge rushers, Batty from BYU and Carlton from Cal. Another one I'm willing to bet on is they're going to take a defender from Cal as well. There's like 4 or 5 guys that we've heard connected to them in some form or fashion. Cal's got some defensive prospects as well. And just throughout the process, whether it's just speculation or actual interest, like with Carlton, I feel like they're going to get a defender from Cal as well.
Yeah,
UCLA and Cal, it's happening.
Yeah, Noel Williams, Craig Woodson, Teddy Buchanan, all very Colts players I could see on that day 3 range. Noel Williams might be actually a late day 2 guy. A lot of good players there. We've gone through a lot of names today, guys. We have plenty more names coming up throughout the next 2 weeks to throw at you before the big day. But we do want to thank you guys for making Locked On Colts your first listen today and every day. Now, for your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Draft with Damian Parsons and Keith Sanchez. Find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. If you guys want to become a Locked On Colts insider, chat with us directly and get first dibs on Q&A episodes. Follow the link in our show notes. And if you don't already, make sure you're following at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at Zach Hicks 2, all on social medias. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. We love your guys' rings, views, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow afternoon.